Hey guys, welcome back to Bear Mountain Builds, and if you're new here, I'm Zach. And today we're building a lift top tool cabinet, so let's go through the build. The overall dimensions for this build are 48 inches wide, 24 inches deep, and 41 inches tall, which means it works with everything else I've ever built on this channel, because it's all the same height. As the title says, we have a lift top on this build that encloses 3.5 inches deep of hidden storage inset into our frame. Along with that, these brackets keep our total work surface level, whether it's closed or open. Plus, this is the perfect height for a work surface when I'm working on my laptop or drawing out my plans so I don't have to hunch over, unlike when I'm working on a standard workbench height. For more storage, we have 5 total drawers on this side with 2 2-inch deep drawers, 2 5.5-inch deep drawers, and 1 10 1/8 inch deep drawer, which is perfect for your bigger hand tools like your circular saw. And later on in this video, I'm going to show you literally the easiest and fastest way to build drawers and install them along with sliders into your cabinet. And on the other side, we have a cabinet with 2 adjustable shelves that are 20 inches wide and 23 inches deep. Plus, this build is super modular. Both halves are the same dimension, so if you want all drawers, you can do that and you're not going to have to buy any more wood. Or if you want a cabinet on both sides, you can do that too, and you'll eliminate the need for a sheet of 1/2-inch plywood. Finally, on the outside of the build, we have a clamp holder that keeps your clamps organized and easy access. Plus, you can never have too many clamps, so we've got another one on the other side. This is a super simple, straightforward build that will be great in a small shop or even a big one. And as always, I offer detailed plans for this whole build that include bill of materials with hyperlinks, cut plans, and full assembly instructions that will save you a ton of time and make the process really easy. So if you're interested in those, I'll have them linked down below. And with that, hit the subscribe button and let's get started with the build. To kick off the build, we're starting with our 2x4s. These are going to be making up our frame. So we're going to take these over to our miter saw, get all of our pieces cut to length. We've got all of our 2x4 frame pieces cut. Now, before we can start our frame assembly, we need to add some pocket holes. So we're going to be adding those to both our long stretcher and our cross pieces. And I'll have all those pocket hole locations along with the cut lengths in the plans. To start off with building this frame, we're going to be leading off with our legs. Now the legs are 2 parts. We have a short leg and a long leg. Now this short leg is going to be centered on our long leg, and we're going to have a lap joint on the top and bottom. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but there's a really easy way to put these things together. I'm just taking 2 of my stretchers, because these are going to be at the top and bottom of these legs. We're going to just put that on either end of our short leg. Then we'll just lay down a glue bead on our short leg. Here's where we're using these stretchers as spacers to position our long leg. All we're doing is flushing our long leg to the top sides of each of these stretchers, and that's going to make sure that our short leg is centered on our long leg. And then once we've got that centered and in position, I like to just take some 6-inch clamps and throw them on here, because with that glue it can get a little squirrely while you're screwing stuff down. And then we can run our screws in here, and I want to note that I am running my screws through the long leg and into the short leg, because that way all of our screw heads will be on the interior side of this build and you won't see them. Super simple. First leg's done. Now we're just going to repeat the same process for the rest of our legs. Got all 4 of our legs put together. Now I always like to do this in my videos, but I want to show you how these lap joints work. So you've got your stretcher at the bottom, you've got a leg here, you've got a leg over here, and then you can put your stretcher at the top. And this is the beauty of lap joints. This is fully self-supported, no hardware. I can really lean on it. Like, it is plenty strong because all of our load transfer is going through the wood and into our tabletop. No hardware is taking any load. And to top it all off, lap joints are super easy, as you just saw. Now we're going to go ahead and get this side frame put together. Putting together these side frames is just as simple as it was putting together these legs. So we've got our 2 legs laid out. Our base is going to be our stretcher. So we'll flip our first leg over. We have access to our lap joint here, and we're just going to load it up with some glue first. Now we can just put this into place, and all we're doing is flushing up our lap joint so that both ends are flush. The nature of these lap joints is they're going to pretty much hold themselves perfectly square. However, I like to use a corner clamp just to make sure that we are perfectly square. And if you've got the tool, you might as well use it. So I just clamp this in place using some 6-inch clamps. Using this corner clamp with these clamps holds that joint tight while we screw it in. And just like before, I'm making sure my screws are going in through our long leg. That way, they won't be seen. Then we'll just do the same thing for our other leg. Now we'll just do the same thing for the other side of our frame half. And in this case, I flip the whole side over so we have access to those joints still. And we can load those up with glue, flip it back over, put it in place. With our stretchers attached to our legs, our frame side has structure. But we're not quite done with it yet. We're going to be putting in our short stretchers. Now this is the time where we need to decide which end is going to be the top and which end is going to be the bottom. This side is going to be the bottom for me. So to start off, we're going to take our short stretcher that has pocket screws going along the long edge. And when we put this into place, we just want to make sure that our pocket holes are directed towards the center of the frame, because that's going to be going up and into our bottom platform. Then to get this mounted in place, all we're doing is throwing down a little bit of glue and we'll screw it in place. Now we're just going to do the same thing for the top, but our short stretcher does not have any pocket holes in it. The only thing you probably want to think about is what looks the best, because this will be exposed, so just try to put the ugly side down. Our frame half is done, and as you can tell, we have all of our screw heads on this side and 0 screw heads on this side, so we're going to have a really nice clean look on the outside of our build. So from here, we're just going to do the same thing one more time. With that, both of our frame halves are all put together and absolutely rock solid. So we're going to finish up this frame by getting them mounted together. To mount our 2 frame sides together, we're going to be using our cross pieces. Now it is good to note that we have 2 different cross pieces. We have one that has pocket holes along the long edge, And then we have one that does not have pocket holes along the long edge. It just has the pocket holes on either end. What we're going to be doing is we're going to start at the bottom of our frame because this is where all of our pocket holes are going to go. And I like to do the pocket hole ones first. That way I know I'm putting them in the right spot. So we're going to be using our cross piece that has pocket holes along the long edge because those are going to be going up and into the bottom platform. So we just want to make sure that we maintain the correct orientation when we're putting this in place. So to start off, we're going to put some glue on the end of our cross piece and get it positioned. And for positioning this, we're just making sure we are flush on both edges. And then I like to use my 90-degree corner squares. That's going to help keep this cross piece square to our frame, along with holding it in place while we're putting in our screws. With this corner square in place, this is being held square to our frame. However, I like to apply a little down pressure so that way it doesn't lift up at all when I'm putting those screws in there. I don't have a clamp long enough to go all the way to the end of my cross piece. So what I like to do is just take a rogue 2x4 block and we're going to clamp this onto our cross piece. Just using a couple of 6-inch clamps. Now this is going to give us a clamping location so we can apply some down pressure and make sure that our cross piece stays nice and flush against our frame. Pretty easy. Now we'll just do the same thing for our other bottom cross piece with the pocket holes, and then we'll just go right to the top as well. And once again, we're just making sure that we're paying attention to the orientation of our pocket holes. Now we're just going to do the same thing on our top side, but this time we don't have to worry about pocket holes. We've got all of our cross pieces mounted to one side, and as you can tell, it's starting to get a little out of reach, so we're going to drop this down onto a lower table, and then we'll get the other side mounted up. For mounting the other side, instead of going one by one, we're going to kind of do this in one fell swoop. So first things first, we're going to get glue on the ends of all of our cross pieces. So we'll put this in place up here, and we want to be mindful that this is the bottom of our frame, so we just need to make sure that the bottoms are together because our pocket holes all need to be in the right orientation and on the right side. And we're just going to set this in place roughly, and then we'll just go around one by one, getting all those joints flushed up, clamped in place, and put in our pocket screws. Alrighty, our frame is done. It is rock solid, goes together super fast and easy. So now we're moving on to our top and bottom platforms, and we're going to cut those out of some 3/4 inch plywood. The top and bottoms, I'm going to be cutting out of 3/4 inch sandy plywood. Now generally, I don't like to run a full sheet of plywood through my table saw. Instead, I lay it down on my assembly table. It's on top of a piece of 2-inch foam. That way I can run my circular saw through it, cut it down to a more manageable size without cutting into my tabletop, and then we'll take everything to final size on the table saw. Here's a super and fast way to mark out where you need to notch the corners on your bottom platform. So first thing I've already done is this frame is upside down, so this is the bottom side of the frame. Now we can just take our top platform and we're going to set this right on top. Then from here we're going to position this like where we would position it if it was inside the frame. So big thing to note is this is sized so that it's going to be inset to the front of our frame by 3/4 of an inch. That's because we want our drawer faces to inset. So I've got one of my Bear Mountain Build spacers, and I'm just insetting this from the front of our frame by 3/4 of an inch. And then we just want to make sure that we are flush from side to side. Once you've got your bottom platform in place, really easy, all you're going to do is look up underneath, mark right where that corner is, and then we'll come back with a square and finish off that line. Now you might notice that this piece of plywood does have a little bit of a bow to it because there is a gap right here. Not a big deal because this is going to be pocket hold onto our frame and it's going to hug everything nice and tight for us. With our 4 corners marked, we're going to take this back over to our assembly table. We'll finish off these markings using a square and then we'll jigsaw out our notches. We've got our notches cut out, so we're gonna go ahead and test fit this, and if it doesn't fit the first time, just take a little bit of material away where you need to until it drops right in. Looks like we are pretty good. The one thing you wanna check before you screw this in place is we wanna make sure we still have that 3/4 inch inset. So we're using the 3/4 inch spacer again. We're just gonna make our way along and just make sure that we're good to go. And we can do a little light shifting if we need to. And it looks like we're good. Let's get this platform clamped to the frame. We'll turn it on its side and get it mounted in place using some pocket screws. We've got our bottom platform installed. It's nice and snug, goes really fast. Now next up, we're moving on to our storage platform. This is going to be mounted to our frame and right underneath our top. It's going to be kind of a hidden storage compartment, which is pretty doggone cool. And instead of 3/4 inch, we're going to be cutting that out of 1/4 inch plywood, and we're basically just doing the same process that we did for our bottom platform. We've got our piece cut out. Now we're going to do our same tracing method and we'll get this set into place. Now, got to remember, this is the front side of our frame. We have set that because we have the 3/4 inch inset for our bottom platform. So we're doing the same inset, same 3/4 inch spacer, and we're going to make sure that we are inset by 3/4 of an inch. And looks good. Now you might notice we have a little bit of bow in here. Not a big deal. This is going to be glued, brad nailed, and then braced again later, so it will be flat, I promise you that. And then this is not quite edge to edge for the whole frame because we want to keep our end grain hidden. So instead, we just need to make sure that it's centered left to right, and all of this is going to be in the plans, not to worry. Our platform's positioned, so we're just going to press it down, make sure it's flat, and then trace out our legs again. We've got our 4 corners notched out, so we're going to do a dry fit just to make sure everything is fitting correctly. And the big thing we want to make sure of is that we still have that 3/4 inch inset, so we're using our spacer again just to make sure. And it looks really good. So before we actually take this out to get it mounted in place, we're going to go around and just trace where the edge of our platform is. That way it's going to give us an area where we need to glue. With everything traced out, we'll get this pulled out and throw down a glue bead. I'm going to brush this out just so we don't get too much glue squeeze going into our storage area. The brad nail down in place, and we just want to make sure that we still have that 3/4 inch inset, so I'm going to hold my spacer up while I do my brad nailing. Our platform is installed, glue is dry, so it's not going anywhere, but now it's time to really reinforce this thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to be putting in a sidewall, and a center divider, and all of those are going to be made out of 3/4 inch plywood, so we're going to go cut those out now. I've got our 2 side walls and the center divider cut out. However, one thing I want to point out is these are going to be braces for our 1/4 inch platform up here, so you want them to fit nice and snug. So instead of cutting directly to the dimension that's on the plans, I recommend cut it a little long, 1/16 inch, 1/8 inch, and then slowly work your way back until you get a nice snug fit like this. You want it to have a little resistance, but you know it's fitting really nice and snug. You get good bracing in here, and then you're good. Once you have all your pieces fitting nice and snug, you can go on to the install, and we're going to start off with installing our 2 sidewalls first. Installing the sidewalls, really fast and easy. We're just going to do a little bit of glue, and we're going to throw that onto our legs first, and then we'll do a little bit on the bottom as well. Now that we got glue on there, we can slide this in, and I'm just going to slide it in a little bit off from our legs until we're flush with the front edge of our bottom platform. Then we'll just squish it up against our legs. And we just want to make sure that we're maintaining that flushness to the bottom platform. Hopefully this should be nice and tight for you, so sometimes moving it with your fingers might get a little tough. So you can always use a 2x4 block and a mallet just to help move it over the little bit you need. We're nice and flush down there. I'm just going to do some 6-inch clamps to help hold it up against our leg while we brad nail it in place. Nothing too complicated. Now we're going to do the same thing on the other side. We've got both of our sidewalls installed, glue is dried, so we're moving on to our center divider. Now, our center divider is a little different. We're not just going to glue and brad nail it, we also have some pocket holes that are going to be running down into our bottom platform. The first thing we're going to do is we really want to make sure our center divider is, for one, centered, but also it needs to be parallel to our sidewalls. Easiest way you can do that is I've already gone ahead and cut out 4 spacers out of some spare 2x4s. So we're just going to lay these in here, and we're going to have 2 on the bottom and 2 on the top. With the spacers in place, let's do a real quick dry fit. With the divider in place, we're nice and flush up against our spacers, so this is going to be its final location. So what I'm going to do is just trace out our bottom. With it traced out, now we know exactly where we need to lay down our glue bead on our bottom platform. You don't need to do it on the top because we're just going to put our glue bead directly on the top of our center divider. With that, we can pull our divider out and get this thing ready for install. Our center divider is in place. When you're doing this, you just want to make sure that, of course, you're flush up against all 4 of your spacers. That way everything's parallel. But then you also want to make sure that you are flush to your bottom platform down here, because we still need to maintain that 3/4 inch inset all the way around. We're going to mount it into our bottom platform using pocket holes, and then I have already gone ahead and marked a center line on top through our storage platform, and I'm just going to run some brad nails through our storage platform and into the center divider. With that divider is installed, as you can tell, there's going to be a fair amount of glue squeeze, so we're going to get this cleaned up, and then we're moving on to drawers. We're going to be cutting all of our drawer sides out of 1/2 inch plywood, and just like before with our 3/4 inch plywood, we're going to strip this out on the assembly table just to bring it into more manageable pieces, and then cut everything to final length on the table saw and the miter saw. We've got all of our drawer sidewalls cut out, ready to go. I also went ahead and cut out the drawer bottoms. These are cut out of just some 1/4 inch plywood. So with that, we are ready for drawer assembly. I gotta be honest with you guys, I used to always hate doing drawer assembly because it was just tedious, it took a while. But here is a really fast and easy way I developed. Now, what I start off with is I lay out the drawer how I'm gonna put it. So I've got front, back, side, side. And to start off, take a front, we're gonna put glue on both ends. And then our side walls are going to lap over the front and back walls. And then I'm just taking my corner clamps. These are designed to fit on a bunch of different trigger clamps. They just slide on and will hold your corners together, and they're really fast to use because you just slide it on there and it holds that drawer in 90 degrees. You're done with that corner. Move over to the other side. Lap our side wall over our front wall. Again, take our corner clamp. Slide it on, corner is put together, we'll spin this around, then we'll just do the same thing for this side. Now we've got our 4 corner clamps holding this drawer together. From here, really easy. All we're doing is just popping in some brad nails, and what I like to do is just make sure we're flush at the top, throw a brad nail in, then I go down to the bottom, make sure we're flush down there. You might need to apply just a little pressure with your thumb to make sure everything lines up. After those 2 nails, the joint is held in place so we can take our corner clamp off. Then for some of these taller drawers like this one, I'll just throw a 3rd or 4th nail in there just to make sure the whole end is being held in place. And then we just repeat the same process all the way around. Now we can move on to installing our drawer bottom, and since this is a shop build, all we're going to be doing is pinning our drawer bottom directly onto the bottom side of our side walls. So what we'll start off with is just do a glue bead all the way around the perimeter. The process of pinning our drawer bottom in place is going to make sure our drawer is perfectly square, because we're going to be flush on all 4 sides, and we know our drawer bottom is square. So what I like to start with first is just do one side, make sure everything's flush, and then we'll work our way all the way around. Sometimes you might find your drawer walls have a little bit of bow. They might bow outward, they might bow inward. If they're bowing inward, I like to just slide them off the table a little bit so I can apply some pressure from the inside of the drawer and just make sure that that side wall is flush with our bottom. Now we can just repeat the same process for the rest of our drawers. Alrighty, with that, we've got all 5 of our drawers built. Like I said, it goes really fast. I mean, the corner clamps make the whole process really easy. If you're interested in these, I have them on my website, and I have them designed for several different trigger clamps, so you can check those out down below. We've got a bunch of drawers. Now it's time to install some sliders. When you're installing sliders, the most important thing is to make sure that your 2 sliders on either side of your drawer are in parallel, or else you're going to get binding and your drawer is not going to work very well. There are several ways to achieve that. There are jigs you can buy. You can measure everything out and pray that it's going to be all parallel. Personally, I have developed a method using the spacers that I call the stacking method. It works really well, it's fast and efficient, and honestly, it's like doing Legos. Let me run you through it. First off, we're starting with our spacers. All of the spacers are 2 inches long and 1 inch wide, and then the thickness of the spacer is written on the face. Now what we're doing is we're taking our spacer, we're putting it flush up against our bottom platform, and we're taking one more, and we're gonna put that flush up against the bottom platform at the rear side of our slider. Then we can just take our slider, and we're pushing it flush up against those spacers. With that, our slider is parallel to this bottom platform. Now finally, we just want to make sure that our slider is flush to the front edge of our sidewall. So I like to use one more spacer and just touch it off and just make sure that that slider is flush. So with that, our slider is positioned and we can go ahead and get this mounted in place using the included hardware. Quick and easy, our first slider is installed. Now here's where the stacking method comes out, because this slider that we just put in place is going to become our new baseline. So we're just going to take more spacers and stack these up until we get to the correct position for our new slider. And just so you know, I have all the dimensions for locating these sliders in the plans. When you're installing these sliders, you will want to remove the drawer side of the slider, which is pretty easy. You just got a little lever on the back side and you can pull it out. Just like before, we've got our spacers stacked up. Our slider is firmly against those spacers and it's not going to move anywhere, which means we are parallel between our 2 sliders. And we have made sure that we are flush to the front side of our sidewall, so now we can drop in some screws. Now we can just repeat the same process the rest of the way down. With that, drawer sliders are installed on one side. Now we're just going to flip our frame over and do the same thing on the other side. With that, all of our sliders are mounted in place. Now it's time to install some drawers. Installing our drawers is going to be just as fast and easy as it was to mount in our sliders. So we are going to be doing a modified stacking method, just like what we did with our sliders. Now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with our bottom drawer and just get it put in place. Bottom drawer is in place. Now we need to have access to our sliders so we can get our screws in there. So what I like to do is just jerk it out and disengage these sliders. That's going to give us access to get our screws in there. With the sliders disengaged, we have access to mount in our screws. However, as we sit right now, this drawer is just resting on our bottom platform, which means we're going to have interference when we're pulling this in and out. So what we're going to do is we're taking 4 1/4-inch spacers and we're going to put these in between our bottom platform and our drawer on each of the 4 corners. That's going to space it up by 1/4 of an inch, and that's going to be our final clearance between our bottom platform and the drawer. With our drawer spaced up, we just want to make sure that our sliders are flush to the front of our drawer. Then we can throw in our first screw at the front of the slider. We got our first screws in there, so what we're going to do is just pull our drawer out until we can have access to our middle screw location. Spacers might fall out while you do this. Not a big deal. We'll just put them back once we're in our final spot. Then we can just mount in our second set of screws. With our second set of screws in, we can just pull the drawer all the way out. We're going to make sure that our spacers are still underneath our drawer and between the platform, and then put in the last set of screws. After our last set of screws, we just pull out our spacers, and then drawer 1 is done. So really fast and easy. Now we're going to move on to drawer 2. Process for the second drawer, very similar to the first drawer. First thing we're going to do is get the drawer put into place. And then we will disengage our sliders. This is where the stacking method comes in, because instead of being based off our bottom platform, we're going to be setting a 3/8 inch gap using 3/8 inch of spacers between our second drawer and our first drawer. So we're going to put our spacers in at each of the 4 corners. Just like our first drawer, we're doing the same process for our second drawer. So we're going to put in our first set of screws while making sure our sliders are flush to the front of our drawer. Pull it out a bit, make sure that our spacers are still underneath our drawer, put in the second set of screws, and then pull it all the way out and put in our final set of screws. From here, we're just going to repeat the same process for the rest of our drawers. Alrighty, we've got all of our drawers installed. Looks really good. Everything's working well. Stacking method makes the whole process go really fast. Now, since we've got drawers installed, it's time to start working on our drawer fronts and our door front. We've got our drawer fronts cut out, so we're going to work on installing these first. Now, I've already gone ahead and removed all of our upper drawers because, once again, we are using the best method, the stacking method, using our spacers, and we're going to be starting off with our bottom drawer. Now, this method is really fast and easy because all of our drawers are separated by an 1/8 inch gap, which makes it really easy because we are using 1/8 inch spacers pretty much everywhere. So to start off, we put a set of 1/8 inch spacers on the bottom in between our frame and our bottom drawer front. We're just going to set that in place. And then we also need an 1/8 inch spacer between our drawer front and the side of the frame. So with that, our front is positioned. We're good to go. So we're just going to get this clamped into place. And now we're ready to mount our drawer front. So we'll just pull out our spacers because it is clamped in place onto our drawer. Pull the drawer all the way out and attach it using some screws in the 4 corners. First drawer done, let's go drop in our next one. With our drawer in place, moving on to our next front. Starting off, we're just putting our spacers on top of our lower drawer front. We can drop the next one on top of those, and then just like before, we're using another spacer to space it out from the side of our frame. And that's in position, so we'll go ahead and get it clamped in place. And then we can pull our spacers and mount it in. From here, we'll just repeat the same process the rest of the way up. Only thing that's different for installing these drawer fronts is on the top drawer. When it's all the way in there, you can't get your clamps in. So what I do is pull out the lower drawer, pull out our upper drawer, and then do the same process of spacers on our lower drawer. Set our new front on top, pull it out so everything's flush, and then instead of an 1/8 inch spacer out from the frame, I'm just using a spacer to make sure that they are flush at the end, and then you can clamp it in place and mount it down. Just like that, all of our fronts are installed. Very easy process. Now we're moving over to our door side. Alrighty, before we mount our door on here, I want to take advantage of the open room that we have while we've got it. So I'm going to be putting in an adjustable shelf in here, and that's going to be done using my shelf hole guide. Now, you could just hard mount this shelf in place, but I like having a little bit of adjustability. So for this, we're starting our guide on the bottom down here, but I don't need a shelf all the way down here. So I'm not even going to start drilling until the top hole. So I'll drill that in at 1/2 inch depth. Now we can just put in our pin, move our guide up, and then drill out all of these holes. And then we'll do one more set. And then from there, just like before, we don't need to go any higher because I'm not going to put a shelf that high. We've got all of our adjustable holes drilled out. Hole guide makes it really fast and easy. For this video, if you want to get the hole guide for $5, I have a coupon code that is Super Hole Guide, where if you get a super set of spacers, have this in your cart as well, it's going to be $5 for you. Anything on my website that you get really helps out the channel, lets me make these videos, so appreciate it if you check it out. So with that, let's go mount some hinges to our door. We've got our door front. We're going to be installing 2 full overlay cabinet hinges. These are really easy to install. We're going to be using my hinge guides. There is the cabinet door side and then the cabinet side of the hinge guide. We're going to be starting obviously with the door side, has the big hole in it. Now we're going to put this in place and we'll space it off from the edge by 1.25 inches. And then when we're in our final position, I'm just using the included hardware screws that come with our hinges, and we're going to just drive those through our 2 screw holes, and those are going to hold our guide in place. And then I'm using an 1 3/8" Forstner bit. That's going to just make room for this part of our hinge to fit inside. And we're just going to drill it far enough that this will sit flush, so we'll do a little bit of guess and check as we go. This process produces a lot of shrapnel, so I like to clean it up as I go so I still get a good visual, because you don't want to drill accidentally through your whole door. Once you think you're pretty close to depth, pull off your guide. And you can put your hinge in there. It should sit flush. If you're not quite flush, just drill it out a little bit more. You don't even need to put the guide back on, because you should be at a depth that the Forstner bit fits inside and it's not going to be moving anywhere else. But since we're at depth, we can install this just using the included screws that we're using to hold our guide in place. From here, we'll just do the same thing on the other side of our door. Now we're ready to get our door front mounted over on our cabinet. For mounting our door in our cabinet, what we need to do first is figure out where these hinges need to mount inside of our cabinet. Now, one thing to make note of is the hinges I'm using are slots, but there are some out there that are holes that then you can adjust side to side. For this part, just make sure if you do have those adjusting holes, they are centered, because we want to just give us the maximum amount of adjustability that we can. So from here, we'll bend our hinges in. And just like our door fronts, we're spaced 1/8 inch from the frame, so we're dropping 1/8 inch spacers on the bottom, and we'll rest our door on top of that and get it put into place. With this in place, I'm going to go around to the back side and use a pencil and just trace out where those slots are going to be on the inside of the cabinet. I've got my slots marked out, and since these are slots and not those adjustable holes, I'm going to mark the center line on them first. We've got all of our holes traced. Now those are just going to be starting points, so it tells us where to position our guide vertically on our cabinet. So we're just going to line up our holes on the guide with the center lines we just traced. Once the guide's in place, just like before, we're going to screw in our screws that came with our hinges. Once those screws are drilled in, you've already pre-drilled your holes, so you can just pull them right back out, and we'll do the same thing for the other hinge. Now we've got our holes positioned and pre-drilled. I've pulled off our hinge plate and we'll get this mounted up. With that, we can mount our door on and just make the necessary hinge adjustments that we need. I really love these full overlay hinges I use. I have them linked down below. They're off of Amazon. They work really well. Best bang for your buck. It's even cheaper than at the hardware store, so I highly recommend them. All of our fronts are done. They are ready for handles, but before we get those installed, let's get this thing up and moving and attach some wheels. Real quick, future Zach here. Ignore these handles on the cabinet, but I forgot to mention I have a coupon code for these hinge guides. The coupon code is Tool Cabinet, and you will get a free set of hinge guides if you get a double set or superset spacers. You just got to make sure that both of these items are in your cart when you use the code. That's it. Back to wheels. As usual, I'm using 4-inch caster wheels. They roll over pretty much everything on your shop floor. Don't cheap out and get the smaller ones. You want to go big. And these work really well. They're the best deal I've ever found, and I'll have them linked down below in the video description so you can check them out. Done. We've got our caster wheels mounted up, so we're moving on to our handles. Now for this, my handles are going to be centered on these top 2 drawers, centered on the next 2, and then it will just match the same distance from the top of the drawer for this next one down. To make it really easy, I've already made myself a template. So this is for my top 2 drawers, these are for the lower 3 drawers, and I've got a center line on top, and we're going to line that up with the center line we'll draw on our drawer. To start, we'll push our top drawer out from the back side, and then make a center line on top of the face. Then we'll take our template and flush it up to the top and line it up with our center line and then get it clamped onto our drawer. Now we can attach our handles using the included hardware, and then we'll move on to the next drawer. Now we'll do the same thing for the rest of our drawers. Drawer handles are installed. Now for spacing on this door, it's going to be in vertical format, but we're going to be lining up with this top handle over here, and then we're going to match the same spacing that's up here to the side there. Everything works well. We have full access to our drawers now, so it's time to enclose the cabinet. We've got our back panel cut out of 1/4-inch plywood. It's ready for install. Now we're just going to be installing this using screws. We're not using any wood glue because we may want to pull this off later. Back panel's on. It is finally time for the coup de grace of this build, the top. We've got our top face down on our assembly table right now, and what we're going to be using is these pop top brackets. So they're just spring loaded. When it comes to positioning these on our top here, I have all of the dimensions in the plans. It makes it very easy. But big things to remember here. Right now I have the top oriented, so this is the back side of the build. And we need to make sure that our brackets are angled so they are shooting off towards the front because we need this to move backwards. And you want to make sure that the bracket that is up high, that's not mounting to your top, we have our plate on the outside of our top because we need to use that plate to mount into our frame. To get these positioned, easiest way to do it is with spacers. Got the first bracket positioned, and I'm using washer head screws. You want to use washer head because it won't move the bracket over as it tightens up. It will just clamp it in place. And I'll have these linked down below in the video description and in the plans. For getting access to these holes inside the mechanism, I recommend using a 90-degree attachment for your impact. Super easy with spacers. Let's do the same thing on the other side. All right, we've got both of our brackets mounted to our top. Let's take this over to our cabinet and get it attached. For connecting our top into place, easiest way to do this is we're going to be using spacers to hold our brackets in position while we screw everything down. Now I've got two spacer stacks that are going to hold our brackets up from the bottom, and that's going to make sure that when those brackets are fully collapsed, they are flush with the top of our frame. And then I have one more spacer stack off the back side, and all this is going to do is just make sure that our bracket is positioned correctly forward to backward. Now we can drop our top on. This is a little top heavy. It wants to lean off the back just because we have the top on there. So I'm just using clamps to hold these brackets in place. Everything's positioned, so we can screw this down using the same washer head screws that we did before. Let's give it a test. Almost. Looks like we have just a little interference on the bracket side that's connected to our top, so we're just going to loosen those screws up, push it in a little bit, then we should be good to go. Tool cabinet is coming along. It's looking really good. Very pleased how it's turning out. We just have a few finishing touches to do, starting off with some adjustable shelves for inside our cabinet. We've got both of our shelves cut out of 3/4 inch plywood. Now obviously this build includes 2 shelves. You could do 1 shelf, you could do 0 shelves, you could do more, but 2 is just what's going to be in the plans. But before we can get these shelves in, we've got to install our 5mm pins. Super easy adjustable shelves installed. Now we just have one more thing to do, and that is add a little bit of clamp storage to our sides. For the clamp storage on the side, I've taken some of our 2x4, added some pocket holes on the bottom, and we'll just be tacking it in right inside. Lift top tool cabinet is done. Super pleased with how this thing turned out. It looks great. It's super functional. We've got our lift up on here, so we have a very usable workspace if we want to do stuff while we're standing up, whether you're working on a laptop or if you're drawing, sketching out your project. We have our integrated storage underneath, and this all stays flat, so you can have stuff on here and it will not fall off whether it's open or closed. Super modular build. We've got drawers on one side, cabinet on the other side. You can do drawers on both sides if you want to do a lot of drawers, and you will not have to buy any more wood. Only thing you need is double the sliders and the poles. Or if you like cabinets and adjustable shelves, you can do that on both sides. and you can skip the 1/2-inch sheet of plywood in the plans. As with all of my builds, it is the exact same height as everything else in my shop. So this is the same height as the modular table, it's the same height as the assembly table, it's the same height as all of the expanding tables. Everything works together just as it's meant to, because in the shop, you always want to be working on the same exact height. As usual, if you want to build this yourself and make the process super easy for yourself, I have detailed plans linked down below, along with everything else that you've seen in the video and the full bill of materials for this build, so you can check that out if you're interested. Along with that, if you want to stay up to date on all my future projects, hit the subscribe button. If you enjoyed this video, learned something new, hit the like button for me. Helps me out a ton. Really do appreciate it. And if you have any questions about the build, leave a comment. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.